Good afternoon. Today in the workshop we're going to be taking a look at my new sim racing cockpit, the GT Omega Prime Lite. I ordered this late Wednesday evening. It arrived first thing on Friday with parcel force in these two really rather nice, quite heavy duty boxes which have seemingly done a good job of protecting their contents on their journey from China to me via Scotland. This is a replacement for my clone GT Omega Art cockpit. That's a steel framed rig. It's relatively cheap but miles too flexible for the pedals I want to mount to it, so I ended up upgrading sooner rather than later and buying this, which is an aluminium profile sim rig. If you're not familiar with aluminium profile, it's this stuff. It comes in various sizes. This happens to be the same size as most of the parts in here. This is 40/80, so 40mm by 80mm. This is slightly heavier duty, so the webbing is a bit thicker. I use this for saw fences and jigs in the workshop. It's probably overkill for what I use it for. The light version, which is what's in here, isn't all that much lighter, so I'm expecting it's going to be perfectly adequate for a sim rig. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bought it, right? The beauty of this stuff is that it's really versatile. So you've got slots all the way around. You can buy these with no slots on one side if you need a smooth side and things like that. They come in various different types, but essentially the way that your fixings are made is you have a slot, you have a T-nut, like this one here, and you make your bolt your connections that way. So you put your T-nut into the slot, and that's how you attach everything from like your angle brackets and gussets and brackets and things. There are drill connections for these, but we don't have to worry about that right now. I'm pretty sure there are none of those on the Prime Lite. So I'm not going to ramble on too much. We're going to get the contents of these boxes out on the bench so you can see exactly what this comes with. I've got everything laid out on the bench now. As you saw, the packaging was very good. There are a few dings and nicks here on the profile. Nothing I'd say would be worth sending it back over, or if you were giving this as a gift, nothing that I would worry about too much. Bear in mind this has been from China to Scotland, and then Scotland's just north of London. So, it's picked up a few scrapes here and there. But, yeah, I mean, once it's in use, no one's going to notice. Everything's bagged up. These bags are all tied. They're not heat sealed, they're not stapled, you don't have to tear them open, so you can always tie them back up again as well. That's a good little thing. They provided tools. So we've got two ball end hex keys here. I approve of this very much. If there are any parts that are more difficult to access where you can't get the head of the key in, you need to get to access with an angle, ball end hex keys are the way to go. I don't know if they're great quality, but then they look alright, they don't look bad. They've only got to last for this build really. They've also provided a couple of spanners. This one's alright, this one's fine, they're both stamped steel. This one on the other hand has a burr all the way around it. So we won't be using that, or bear in mind this side's smooth, so if you're butting up against a bit of profile, you can always use the smooth side. But just in case, I'm going to use my own spanners. I've got a 13 and a 14mm spanner there, so that's fine. Other than that, yeah, I'm pretty pleased with the whole thing. It's really quite heavy duty, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So now we're going to assemble our rig. We'll do the first little bit together, and then I'll time lapse the rest. And where there's interesting things, I'll kind of point them out. So the first thing we're going to need, it's very much like a Lego kit, really, the way it's laid out. So it tells you how many parts you need and how many times you've got to repeat them. So we're going to need two 500s. This is the base of the thing. So two 500s, which should be those ones. We'll just do the first one, and I'll do the rest on my own. But I want you to see how this all fits together. So we need two of these 60mm gussets. 80mm gussets, and two of the smaller ones. So these are the 40x40s, and we need 10 of our, it'll be 5, won't it? So it'll be 2 for each. No, it's 10. So it's 2 for this same setup twice. So we need 10 of these. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10. I've got a notebook handy so I can write down observations as I go. And we need 10 of these M8x16s, which should be these. So it's 5. Also makes a handy resting place for all the nuts and bolts and things. 4, 5. Okay, so we're going to start with, okay, we probably don't need to do this whole assembly, but we'll start with our two little ones, and then we'll do the two big ones. And the way it recommends you can either insert in these little T-nuts is you can either slot them in from the end, you know, as you'd expect. It's fairly straightforward if you have access, which we do here, or it reckons you can slide them in, which is well, try it, why not? So it means you can just pop it in that way. I can't. Oh, it does work. Ah, look at that. There we go, so it just slides in there. And then of course you just bolt through with your bolts with our Allen keys. And you just bolt through there. Yeah, it's tightening down on that. I was a bit concerned. I was slightly concerned that it was tightening down on. It was too long, but yeah, those the little sprung T-nuts there are the same ones that I use for for my stuff in the workshop. Because if you use the regular ones, they have a tendency to sort of wiggle about in the slot, and then they hard to line up with the screw. So sprung ones are a massive improvement. Anyway, I'm not going to make you sit through the rest of this in real time. So we're going to reposition the camera. No, I'm going to put this bit together and then we'll reposition the camera because we'll be doing the rest on the trestles. And there we go, that's our build done. There's loads of leftover stuff. I don't really like that. Just loads of it. Obviously these need to go, well, these need to be fitted, but we have 5 of these gussets left over. The feet need to be fitted, but I'll do that when we get down off the trestles. Nuts, bolts, oh, there's another Allen key in there. No idea what that was for, because I just didn't use it. Yeah, there's just, I mean, there's these little cable tie things. These look pretty cool. I'll show those in a close-up actually. So they're not spares, we'll use those. But yeah, nuts, bolts galore, you name it. T-nuts, more T-nuts. I mean, that's quite a generous portion of stuff. Alright, we're going to fit those, but yeah, as a sort of portion of nuts and bolts left over, that's pretty generous. Fitting your bits and pieces to the rig, but maybe this is for maybe these are for adding bits on, or maybe just added a few bits in case you want to switch things around a bit. I don't know. I haven't the foggiest. We will make changes to this. I have to admit, I'm quite impressed with this. It's a very nice thing so far. It feels very, very solid. So obviously the shifter is on the wrong side. It should be on the right hand side for me. Right hand side, left hand side, sorry, for me. So you have to move that. I have to get everything positioned and all that when we actually get it set up. So I'm looking forward to trying that out. You're getting it down off the stand and fitting all the kit. It's been 3 weeks since I put this together. The build took about 2 hours, which is owing to the sheer amount of parts that needs to be put together. I don't want it to be off-putting either. Thanks to the T-slot and nut system, it's actually it's really easy. There's just a lot of it. And what we have now is, it's quite a nice rig. It's not an overly large. The footprint is 1300 millimeters by 900 mil. Though if you take the shifter mount off, it comes down to 720 mil by 700 mil tall to the top of the uprights. It's not a lot bigger than the GT Omega Art, which is what it's replacing. It's actually over in the corner there where the camera's sitting at the moment. It doesn't look terribly imposing in person either. I don't know how it's coming across on camera, though I suppose that's going to depend on how much stuff ultimately you bolt to it. When it comes to actually reviewing something like this, there are no universal standards. I'm used to being able to pull a book off the shelf that tells me whether something is or isn't in spec. There isn't that for this. There aren't really any measurements that we can take to then compare to other rigs, for instance. So I suppose from here on it's all fairly subjective. It's about what you or I find acceptable or desirable at a given price point. So that's where we're going to start. The full price for this is supposed to be £400 on the GT Omega Art website. I ended up paying $322 because they had an introductory offer for $340. I had a voucher code, brought it down to $322, and because they obviously hate me, it's on offer for the next 5 days. Well, actually, I should probably give you the date. The date is it's the 1st of March 2023. It's on offer for the next 5 days at 300 quid. And at that price, if you are looking for an upgrade from a lower end rig, something like a GT Omega Art, a Playseat Challenge, the Playseat Evolution, something like that, and you're watching this video because you want to know whether it's worth it, pause the video, go and buy one, come back and I'll tell you why that was a good idea. I don't say that lightly either. I'm not being facetious here. I'm absolutely serious. I don't want to ruin the rest of the video. But if you're in the market for an aluminium sim rig and you don't want to spend a lot of money, this is the one. The only real competition for this would be probably the Simhound chassis. But that's a lighter extrusion. It's a smaller profile. It doesn't have the shifter mount. And the shifter mount on here actually braces these uprights as well, so that's more rigidity. And it's more or less the same price. I can't see why you would buy that over the Prime Lite. All of that said, this isn't perfect. There are a couple of fairly minor issues with it, and I'd rather get the criticism out of the way before we get into looking at what's so good about this. The only real criticisms that I have of the rig centre around the pedal plate here. As you can see, I've got my racing boots on, don't want my dirty work boots all over my nice shiny pedals. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the issue, and I want you to watch the heel plate here because this will give you an exaggerated indication of what's happening, but also at the look at the bottom, where this piece of aluminium profile meets the pedal plate. So, you get a foot on the brake pedal and push down, and there we're taking up the slack on the spring. And you can already see it's flexing a bit. Now if you push down the elastomers, and you can see that gap opens up down here, and sort of significant amount of movement in the heel plate. But like I said, bear in mind this is exaggerated. So there is, at an estimate, there's probably probably 1/8 of an inch movement there, something like that. It's enough to be slightly disconcerting, but it's not severe enough to be a real problem. It's just a sort of minor frustration. It would be nice to see this plate stiffen up. I don't know what GT Omega can achieve within. Obviously, you know, they have a budget for production for these things, and if they're, depending on where they end up with a price point at 400 quid, you know, maybe they've got a bit of leeway. If the change to 300 becomes long term, then I can't see, you know, I can't see where they're making any money, to be honest. But yeah, it's not a deal breaker. You know, it still works. It's still much more pleasant than some of the other rigs that I've used. I would just like to see this plate stiffened up. I might do that myself. You know, take some angle iron and just bolt it underneath, and that should do the trick. But yeah, we'll see what GT Omega kind of make of that in the future, whether they change it or not. The other thing, if I hold myself out of my seat here, the other thing is the adjustment for the plate itself, for the angle. Now, well, I say it's not the adjustment. So there's plenty of adjustment here. This is actually pretty good. This is all coarse adjustment. And if you think of what's going on here, there's a slot, obviously these slots here, and there's another slot in the actual pedal plate itself. So you've got this sort of coarse adjustment and fine adjustment by moving it along the slot. The issue with that is that there's a nut on the other side. It's not a captive nut. Obviously, you don't have a single hole there that you can thread. So you have to get under there with a spanner to get it tightened up. And it is really quite awkward to do that, to be honest, because you also have a gusset in the way here. I imagine if you had your plate set up here or here, it wouldn't be such a big deal. But these are very upright, and so I need this plate as flat as I can get it to make it sort of comfortable. And in fact, I could do with probably bringing this down a little bit. But otherwise, it does have a good range of adjustment, and the same for the moving the pedals forward and backward on the plate, but also you can obviously move the plate as a whole backwards and forwards as well, because it secures with those T-nuts. So you just loosen everything off, move it, and tighten it all up again. Anything else really is going to be finding fault for the sake of finding fault, but you know, why not? We've got these gusset covers. These are for the 90-degree connectors that hold various bits and pieces onto the frame, like the shifter mount and a couple of other bits. And they fall off. If you're moving your frame around, your rig around, they tend to fall off. Not really held on by much. They've got a couple of little prongs there. They're not holding very tightly. But really, they're just aesthetic. They're there to cover the exposed bolts, so that it looks a little less industrial, a little more friendly. But to be honest, it's not a big deal. You just put them back on. Otherwise, I really can't think of anything. And this isn't just me saying this because you know, I paid a lot of money for this, and I want it to be good. Of course I do. But if it was no good, given the amount of money I paid for it, I'd be sending it back. I'm quite a critical person, otherwise I wouldn't be making reviews, right? So, that said, we should probably talk about what's good about the rig. And given that we've gone over the adjustment for the pedals as it is, the pedal angle adjustment, we should probably talk about the wheel. That's be the next kind of big thing. So obviously you need to get the position of your wheel right. It's a bit like your pedals, it's all critical. And to do that, you have a whole bunch of adjustments on here. So on the wheel plate, the wheel plate, this is fairly heavy duty steel as well. You have about 1 inch of forward backward adjustment, and you have a little bit of angle adjustment there as well, so you can tilt your wheel, in my case, as far forward, you know, as far down as I can get it, so it's as flat to me as possible. I don't know whether that's really the right thing to do, but it seems more comfortable to me. The next thing is the height adjustment. So you want this, actually don't take this as gospel, go and look over a proper guide, but apparently you want the top of the wheel to be level with your shoulders. I think I'm about there. And to do that, we can loosen off these Bristol levers. There's a pair either side. And we can loosen those off, move the wheel deck up and down, you know, move it to wherever you need it, and then tighten them up again. It's nice and quick and easy. But the best thing about these is that you can then pull the lever out and twist it round to where it's not in the way. They're really very neat. And yeah, you can substitute these for 6 bolts either side, and I've no doubt that that really does stiffen up the rig and the uprights and all that. I haven't found that to be a problem, in all honesty. But you can undo those, pull this bar up or down, that's where you want it. I'm probably making that sound easier than it really is. It's still awkward, but you know, it's easier than going and grabbing a spanner or a hex key. Get that where you want it, tighten everything up again, and you're good to go. In terms of moving this backwards and forwards, either side you have 6 bolts that you'll want to loosen off. There's 8 bolts in total, but the 2 here, 2 at the back here, and 2 on the top of that secure the bracket on the inside to the top of the frame. So that plate down there is 10mm. The angle bracket is 5 or 6mm, and it's very much built. It's built very heavily. It's pretty overbuilt to prevent sway in the frame. So I'm about £210. If I get off of here, I could leave on this, I suppose. But I'm used to picking up heavy stuff. I've got a workshop which is all about metal working and, you know, moving big bits of cast iron around. But not lately. But yeah, you know, I can give it a shove and I can get a little bit of movement out of that. I mean, you can see that this, you know, these arms are pretty flimsy. We'll split this monitor in a minute. Yeah, you can see, you know, you can get a bit of tiny little bit of movement out of it, but it's not significant. It genuinely isn't worth commenting on. I mean, I could go and get a dial indicator out, set up a stand, and see how many thousandths of an inch it's moved. But it wouldn't be worth my time and effort to do so. The shifter mount, which you could sort of see through the frame from the other side, is comprised of a 3.5 or 4mm plate bolted to this 40/40 extrusion, supported by one of these angle brackets and bolted down with 2 more at the top here. It's, you know, it's pretty well constrained where it is. This shifter doesn't really kind of fit the holes in this this plate, to be fair, but you know, put a couple of washers on there and made it work. In all honesty, having tried this out, most of the flex in this is in the shifter. I don't want to. It's only a cheap one off of AliExpress. I don't want to sort of abuse it too much, but it is it's the bit that's wobbling. So yes, if I pull up on this, if I give this a yank, I can make it move. That's not how you use a shifter, really, is it? No, it's just not. Yeah, there's just no real movement there, you know. And that is good. That's what we wanted. I don't know how this would do with a heavier duty shifter. I suspect that if you're bolting one through, you know, all 4 bolts, you're probably going to end up with a better result than this that's only bolted through 2. And it'll be a bit more balanced as well, bearing in mind that this is actually hanging off one end. The bolts are actually through sort of this section of plate. So it's pretty close to this edge. So when you pull back, all of that force, you know, you're levering back on the edge here and not sort of concentrating that closer to where the bar is mounted. So yeah, overall pretty impressed with that. I think it's a fairly decent shifter mount. Well, it's very decent. You know, there's very little flex in it, and it's mounted on this massive bar, which, as I said earlier, supports and helps to stiffen the wheel mount here, the wheel uprights. But it also allows you to mount stuff. I mean, if you were going to build a rig that was essentially half a car, and bear in mind this is set up for right-hand drive, you know, this is where your central console would be. That's where you chuck your sweet wrappers down there, isn't it? Your cup holders. But no, in seriousness, it does give you a lot of options in terms of mounting stuff that you wouldn't have if you didn't have the bar here. You kind of have to cobble something together. So yeah, very neat. When it comes to seat adjustment, like pretty much every other rig, there isn't much of it. Actually, this is one area where I think the GT Omega Art really does well, is that you have height adjustment, and if you brute force it a bit, you can tilt your seat down. You know, you can tilt it backwards. This has no such features. It's just the extrusion here, and that sits between the frame, these 2 cross members, and your seat. Now obviously you could turn these on their side. You could mount your rails directly to the to the cross members. You could make up custom spaces if you wanted. I may actually end up lowering the seat so it's more of a GT position, because at the moment it's more like driving a car, really. Driving a regular car. Yeah, so you have that, and then obviously you have whatever adjustment is built into your seat. So for instance on this we have the seat rails, and the way that I set this up initially was that it was supposed to accommodate, well, any of my mates really. So it needs to go from someone who's 6 foot odd, 6'2", to sort of 5'2", you know, that kind of range. And I'd sort of stuck myself in the middle. Well, I fiddled with where the wheel is, so it's not quite there now. I have to get everyone around and just sort of play with the adjustments. So yeah, no magic at the back end. It's just you know, nuts and bolts. So that's sort of an overview of the rig. When it comes to what else? Okay, yeah. Oh, so we've got the monitor mounted on here, and this was really just for a demo. But I've left it on there because, as much as I want to get a triple monitor setup done, perhaps by the end of the year. I did have triple monitors. My fiance now uses them for work, so you know, I've been nicked. But hopefully we can get that sorted out by the end of the year. But for the moment, actually, this works really well because I've been moving this around, recording stuff. Having the monitor mounted to the rig kind of made sense. So I thought, oh well, you know, I've got the arm, I'll give it a go. And it just shows the versatility of this kind of system, where as long as you've got bolt holes, you can bolt things to it. If you have button boxes, if you had, say, you know, if you were using something like SimHub with your tablet, and you can get a tablet holder and you know, bolt it down. If you're streaming and you have like a Stream Deck, you know, people sell mounts for all this sort of stuff. And if they don't, you can buy off-the-shelf parts that you can, you know, cobble together holders and mounts for things in this stuff, in, you know, aluminium extrusion, 4040 or 4080. And off the shelf there are a lot of different parts. So they do things like hinges and, you know, all sorts of types of connectors and trunnions and stuff. You know, you name it, it's there to bolt to this. So yeah, it's you know, it's a really versatile system. The other thing about these slots is that you can run your cables in them. I don't know, it's sort of visible here, but in here, and you can see that the bundle kind of comes out and drops back in. And I've actually been using these, which I mentioned earlier. These are those cable tie holders that clip in. And you see I haven't actually been putting cable ties through them. I've been using them to hold the cables in the slot until I can trim down some Velcro cable ties. Very thoughtful of, really is a thoughtful thing to put in here for cable management. I was going to say that I would like to have seen more of these from GT Omega in the bag, but that's just me being greedy. They put loads in. I'd just like a load more, you know. But yeah, it's like just greed, that is. They're very cool. They're very good. But the whole, you know, the whole thing, I'm quite impressed by. It's to sort of sum up, in use on the track when you know, running laps, it's there. It doesn't do anything. It's inert, and that's what you want. It holds everything together really solidly. What you don't want is to be fighting with your rig, and you know, I'm not. It's solid. It holds onto the wheel, the pedals, and the seat. None of them go anywhere. All right, yes, there's flex on the pedal plate, but you know what? For 300 quid, I can, or 320 quid, I can live with it. So overall, I'm really pleased with this rig. I wouldn't recommend it otherwise. I wouldn't be saying to other people. If I had any doubts about it, I wouldn't be saying to other people, you should go and buy one. I think the interesting thing is if GT Omega can keep it at that £300 price point, it kind of renders, I hesitate to say it renders everything redundant. I think it means that, you know, yes, all right, if you're trying out the hobby, yes, all right, you might go for something cheaper. But as soon as you want to upgrade, it's this, and you're done. There may be uses for heavier duty rigs. Maybe maybe you need them for, like, if you have a motion rig. Maybe, I don't know if you necessarily need a bigger, a stronger rig for that. I don't know. I can't imagine that it would be an issue actually, but but you know, that's something maybe I'll tackle one day. So yeah, I mean, really pleased with it. Very happy. Go and buy one. Honestly, if you're getting into the hobby and you're looking for an upgrade, if you haven't already, if you didn't earlier, go and get one now. Otherwise, yeah, if you have, as usual, if you have any questions, put them in the comments. Don't ask me to strap different gear to it because I don't have any. This is what I've got, with the exception of an ancient Fanatec CSR and the Fanatec CSP V1s, which I'm not getting out again. These pedals are just way better. I'll be doing a review of these in due course, and the same with the shifter. So yeah, if you have any other questions which aren't, can you try this out, or does this work with the direct drive wheel, which I'm sure it does, but I can't test that. I think Carl Gosling did try one on his, so you know, go and check his channel out. I'll put a link to his review actually, because it was quite he covered some different things to what I did, so I'll put a link to his review and you can go and check that out. I'm pretty sure you use something like a Fanatec direct drive, so yeah, that should answer your questions in that respect. But as for me, yeah, I you know, hope this has been a helpful video for you deciding whether you want to buy one of these, and you obviously do. And so yeah, either, you know, ask me questions, let me know how you get on with your new rig, whatever in the comments, and I will see you in the next video, which will probably be something more industrial and less sim related, but you never know. We might be doing, might do the pedals next. I'm not entirely sure yet. We might be doing, but we might in fact be doing water collimator mirrors. I'm not entirely sure yet, but yeah, you'll find out. So yeah, I'll see you next video.